Downstairs, the floor, walls, and ceiling were all white marble. There is no light, but the room is very bright. The room had nothing but a floating table and chair in the middle. The rooms are much smaller than those on the upper floors. We are gonna assign each room, right? Clare confirmed.
Yes, is there a room you prefer?
When Elandra asked, Clare replied, I'll take the middle one, and held out her hand.
Okay.
Elandra handed Clare a testick. Then she turned to Chris and Sana and asked,
What about you? Well, what are you talking about? Are there rooms here?
In appearance, there didn't seem to be any rooms anywhere. What are you saying? There are malls here, and over there too, aren't there? Clare frowned, pointing at walls with testick as if to say, why don't you find out?
Mall?
Yes. Clare nodded, and then flew off and moved to the wall on the left. Then she muttered something and pointed testick towards the wall. Suddenly, a large arched entrance appeared in the wall. Upon closer inspection, there was some kind of symbol like writing displayed above the door. Similarly, the letters are evenly spaced along the top of the wall. Each written character is slightly different. Okay, you got it? Then, I'll give this testick to you because it's linked to that room. Clare came back and handed the testick to Sana. The rooms are all the same, so you can take that room, okay?
Well, anywhere is fine, though.
Sana, who had received the testick from Clare, gave a blunt reply. Clare then received another testick from Elandra, and handed it over to Chris. Chris and Bibi, take the room next door, okay? Clare said, pointing to the room next to Sana's. I'll be in the middle, and Ramal will be next to me, okay? And Elandra, you'll stay in the room at the very end. Clare instructed so. Then she received testick from Elandra and took one for herself and handed the other to Ramal.
Well, that would be fine.
Elandra nodded, smiling. Well, let's start by linking each of our testicks. Why don't you leave your luggage in the room, Chris and Sana?
Yeah, but how do we link the testick in the first place?
Oh, okay. Clare stopped as she headed to her room and held out her hand to Chris. Chris handed over his testick to her. Clare muttered softly as she held the testick above her head. Then she swung the testick at the wall next to Sana's room. Then the tip of the testick glowed blue and an opening appeared in the wall. Now it's linked, Clare said, handing the testick back to Chris.
Thank you. Also, how'd I close this?
Chris pointed to the open entrance with the testick he had received. How to close them all? It's easy, the testick is already linked, so you can close it by using it. Even though he was told that, Chris didn't know how to do it.
So, how can I use this?
Chris asked, and Clare folded her arms and looked at him. Maybe you don't know how to use the room, as well?
Yeah, maybe.
Okay, then come in and I'll explain everything to you. Why don't you listen to? Clare called out to Sana, who was listening to their conversation in front of her room. Sana nodded and ran over. The room was about 20 square meters big. At the far right there is a spiral staircase leading down further. The front wall was made entirely of glass, just like the one above, and beyond it, a world under the lake stretched out. In the center of the room there is a floating table and sofa. First, how to close them all. Clare began to explain as they entered the room. Use the linked testick and say, Venal, to them all.
Venal?
Chris asked. It's like a magic spell. Clare nodded, and Chris did as he was told, pointing testick towards the entrance, calling out, Venal. Then, instantly, a wall appeared and the mall was closed.
Wow, amazing. It's like a magic wand.
Sana exclaimed next to Chris. When the mall is closed it's called Venal, and when it's open, it's called Vanor. So, conversely, if you want to open the mall, just say Vanor, and it will open. Chris tried saying Vanor, to the mall. Then, the wall disappeared in an instant, and an entrance appeared. Chris said, Venel, again and closed the mall. When you give instructions to Testic, you'll need a specific word, Cantarmel, so if you don't know it, you should first learn the necessary Cantarmel. In the underground world, you'll definitely learn it from your parents or school, though. As Claire directed her gaze, Chris shook his head as if saying, we don't learn such things on Earth. Claire nodded back at Chris. Okay, then say, Mercenio, to this crystal wall. Claire pointed to a glass window. Chris did as he was told, said, Mercenio, and pointed the tip of the Testic at the glass window. Then the window turned into just a plain white wall. So, when it's not see-through, it's called Mercenio, and when it's see-through, it's called Mersperio. After hearing Claire's explanation, Chris said, Mersperio, and waved Testic. Then the entire wall turned into glass again.
Amazing. It's like Chris has become a wizard. Is there anything else?
Sana said excitedly. Well, Chris, say Mercenio first. Chris did as he was told, said, Mercenio, and turned the window into a wall. Then, point at the ceiling and say, Lune Nocturna. What? Chris asked, and Claire slowly enunciated the word. Lune Nocturna.
Lune Nocturna.
Chris pointed the Testic at the ceiling and repeated what Claire had said. Then the room became pitch black. Wow, what a surprise. Beeb's voice rang out from somewhere. This state of darkness is called Lune Nocturna. And to brighten it up, just say, Lune Claris. Claire said in the darkness. Chris chanted, Lune Claris, and waved the Testic. And in an instant the room became bright again. Well, that's it, Claire said, arms crossed and with a solemn look on her face.
Hey, was that magic? Can I do it with this too?
Sana asked, holding up the Testic in her hand. Magic?
Yes.
What's magic?
What, you don't know magic?
Sana looked at Chris in confusion after being asked in return.
Magic is like, wizards or sorcerers cast spells to transform people into frogs or to fly on broomsticks.
Oh, I got it. It's magia, Claire said, raising her index finger after hearing Chris' explanation. Rather than understanding it through Chris' explanation, Claire seemed to understand it by reading Chris' image. Well, magic, I think it's not that. When Testic links with it, the crystals resonate with each other, and Testic converts and manifests the Cantarmel you intend. So it's a little different to magic. When using magia, you basically need Cantarmel, but the Cantarmel that can be used depends on the user's ability. But as long as the room and Testic are linked and the correct Cantarmel is chanted, anyone can do it. Claire shrugged and said, let's go downstairs then, and headed for the stairs. Chris picked up Bibi and followed after Claire. At the bottom of the stairs there was a large bed. The egg-shaped bed is covered with white cotton-like material and looks very fluffy. The bed also had no legs and was floating in the air. When Chris put Bibi down on the bed, he said, it's hard to walk, and struggled on the bed. Let me borrow it, Claire said, taking the Testic from Chris' hand. Then she turned to the wall opposite the bed and said, Mersperio. Then the wall became transparent, and a room like a bathroom appeared on the other side. Next to it, a small room appeared with a mysterious device attached to the wall. This is Lapumo in Portal, Claire said, pointing to the room that resembled a bathroom and the small room next to it with the Testic.
Lapumo? And oh, what?
Chris asked. Lapumo and Portal, they're like a bath and a toilet on the surface world. Lapumo is bonsoir. Well, it's hot water that springs from the earth. Unable to think of the words, Claire asked for help.
You mean the hot springs?
Sana answered, and Claire nodded with relief. That's right, a hot spring. You fill that and take a bath. Portals are stool sweeps that are excreted. In the surface world, you expel waste from your bottom and flush it away with water, right? I saw that in the library before.
Is it different here?
Chris asked, and Claire motioned with her head to come on over here. She then opened the portal with Testic and told Chris to go inside. As instructed, Chris entered the portal. The inside of the portal was about the same size as a regular private toilet. Just wait a moment facing the other way. Chris stood straight before a horn-like device, and Claire chanted, Portadero. Then the device slowly and silently descended. Then, when the bell of the horn reached Chris' lower abdomen, the descent stopped. Just stay still. As instructed, Chris stood straight and waited patiently. Soon after, the bell of the horn emitted a blue light. The light shone on Chris' lower abdomen for a short time, then disappeared and the horn-like device rose silently back to its original position. Claire looked at Chris as he came out of the portal with a grin on her face.
What's wrong?
Worried that the blue light had done something to him, Chris looked at his pants. However, nothing in particular seemed to have changed. Claire still wore a sly grin. You don't feel anything?
What do you mean?
How's your stomach feeling? Chris put his hand to his stomach. Actually, Chris felt like his stomach is relieved. He had been holding in his pee for a while, but now he no longer felt the need to pee.
What is this? What's happened?
Chris asked. The portal is like a gate that breaks down accumulated waste into particles, sucks them up, and sweeps them into another dimension.
Wow, really?
Chris couldn't understand how it works, but he knew it's a convenient device that sucks up poop and pee.
But can this thing absorb waste out of the body?
Yes, it can decompose out of body or out of clothing.
Can it be used on animals too?
Of course. Crossing her arms, Claire nodded proudly.
Well, let's do it with BB for now,
Chris said, and put BB in the portal and let his defecate. After that, Chris and Sana shown how to use La Pumo, and Chris put his clothes in the closet behind the bed.
By the way, does the underground world have no TVs?
Chris asked as he noticed as he went up the stairs. Although Messiona is spacious and has everything, there is no TV in the living room or any of the rooms. TV? Oh, yes, it's something people on the surface world watch for entertainment and information. I've learned about it in school. It's a mechanical device that emits specific electrical signals to mind control the masses, right? Claire turned around and crossed her arms. Of course, such stuff doesn't exist in this underground world. Instead, if you go to the library, there's Margamore, so you won't be short of entertainment.
What is she talking about?
Sana frowned, looking at Chris. Chris tilted his head and said, I don't know. Then Claire asked reproachfully, why? You've tried Margamore before, haven't you? Don't you remember?
Yes, I remember that.
In his previous life, Chris went to the library of the Tios and tried it. It was a device for seeing and experiencing the lives of others.
Not about Margamore. I don't know what you said about mind control on TV or something.
Oh, right, you don't know that. Claire nodded and sat down on the sofa. Chris and Sana sat on the sofa opposite.